Hi class, welcome to your first lesson in the algebra book. This is lesson 1-1 and we'll be learning about modeling relationships with variables and modeling relationships with equations. The first thing I'd like you to do is you can go ahead and pause this after and open up your online textbook and make sure it's bookmarked. Okay, bookmark that Pearson SuccessNet page, log in. Remember, this is a login you created using your school email and then a password of your choosing. Go ahead and log in, and then in the online textbook, go ahead and find the definitions for these four terms here: variable, algebraic expression, equation, and then open sentence. Go ahead and complete that vocabulary. There's a hint. There is a glossary in your online textbook, just like you would a regular book, that you can look up those words, and actually you can it's alphabetized, and I believe you can punch in just the one letter and it should bring up all the V words or the A words depending on which letter you press. When you're finished with that, go ahead and hit resume and continue with it, listening to this lesson and taking notes. We're going to go over the first example in our notes, and the first example has us writing an algebraic expression. Now remember, an expression does not have an equal sign, okay? Only equations have equal signs. An expression just represents two independent or two variables, okay? So we're going to write an expression for the sum of n and 8. And in this case, n is going to be any number, so the sum of a number and 8. Well, what does sum mean? Sum is usually the answer to an addition problem. So we're going to add n and 8, and we write n plus 8. Now we're going to write another expression, but we need to define our variable here because it doesn't give us a letter. So we need to define a variable and write an algebraic expression for 10 more than twice a number. Okay, so first thing we have to do is, what is that number? What are we going to use to represent that number? You can pick any letter you like. In here, I have chosen X to be our number. And so then we need to write an expression. So the first thing you want to do is identify your variable. So X is going to equal our number, so I write that down. And then 10 more. That means if I'm going to have $10 more, if I gave you $10 more, you would add that to whatever you already had. So 10 more is plus 10. Well, you're adding that $10 to what? To twice a number. Twice a number is 2 times a number, and so we write the expression 2 times our number, which is our 2x, plus that 10 more, okay? And notice how I have identified my variable as x, and I just put the number there. It's just a quick piece of information that you should always write down. Now, writing an equation, and again, the difference between an expression, notice we don't have any equal signs here. We just have the little piece. It doesn't equal anything. Now, when we're looking for equations, we're going to have an equal sign. So now we need to write an equation to show the total income from selling tickets for a school play. So we have to think about, if I sold 10 tickets, how much money would we be collecting? Well, all of you are saying 5 times 10, which is 50. Okay, at $5 a piece, and we sell 10, that's $50. What did we do? We multiplied the 10 by what? 5. Well, what if we had 11 people come? How much money, how much income would we have? Well, the income would be 5 times 11. So what is our pattern? What is happening? Well, we're taking the income, and that is going to be created by multiplying 5 times however many tickets we sell. So again, we need to make sure we're identifying our variables. I'm going to use X for the number of tickets, and then Y is going to be my money collected or my income. And then my equation is going to be my money, which is the Y, is going to equal 5 times the number of tickets. Okay, don't overthink some of these expressions and equations. A lot of times students overthink them, and that's where you get into trouble. Just think about it, and if you have to play with some numbers in your head for it to make sense, go ahead and do so. All right, continuing on with writing an equation from a table. Well, if we look at this table here, we have gallons and miles. And what do we notice about our relationship between the number of gallons we have and the miles we can travel? Well, hopefully you're seeing that if we take this number and multiply it by 20, we get the number of miles. Does that work for this? Yep. What about this one? Sure. 10 times 20 is 200. So now we need to write an equation for this table. I'm going to let x be the number of gallons and y is going to be the miles we can travel. And think about what's happening. I'm taking the number of gallons and what am I multiplying it by? 20. And I get y equals 20x. Now, a few things you need to keep in mind when you're writing equations, and I know you might have not done this in the past, but you need to get in this habit now. When we're showing operations of multiplication, notice how I don't have any symbol between the 20 and the x. It's understood to be multiplication. You do not need to use the little x symbol or even the star symbol anymore when we're showing multiplication. Eliminate those from your vocabulary and just understand. You also have to put the number in front of the variable. If you put that number to the back, what happens is sometimes we'll think about that as an exponent because, especially if you have sloppy handwriting, it could look like an exponent and you don't want to confuse anyone. So it's always understood that if we're multiplying a number and a variable, that we are going to have the number first and then the variable, okay? So it's extremely important. Now notice we wrote an equation again, not an expression. And so we have y equals 20x. Below we have some quick checks. So take a moment and I'd like you to do these on your own, okay? And then come back and press, you can press pause and then you can restart me once you're ready to check your work. I'll be moving on. Writing an algebraic expression for each phrase. So our first phrase is the quotient of 4.2 and c. Well, remember, quotient is the answer to a division problem. So we're going to divide 4.2 and c. Now notice here how I use the fraction bar. You want to, again, now that we're starting algebra, we want to eliminate that little line with the two dots as our division symbol and use fractions to show division, okay? It'll help you so much more along the way if you get into that habit now. So please eliminate the other division sign from your vocabulary at this point. You've used it in the past, but now we need to move on and kind of grow up and use the big kids division symbol, which is fractions. T minus 5, that's kind of self-explanatory here, and we have T minus 15. And again, since they define the variable here, we don't have to do any of that work for this problem. Now in number 2, we need to define the variable, and I'm going to use n for the number, and then 9 less than the number. So we're going to take away 9 from a number, and so there's my number n minus 9. And again, we're writing expressions. We're not writing equations, so we don't put that equal sign in, okay? The sum of, okay, so sum, adding, we're going to add twice a number and 31. Well, twice a number is 2 times that number, okay? And again, I define my variable as n, so we're going to do twice the number, and then move this little box up a little bit. Twice a number plus 31. That is the sum of 2 times a number and 31. Next, we'll be finding the equation for the cost of n CDs. And they've already identified the number of CDs as being n. So we kind of don't have to define that. And at $15 a piece, if I think about it, if I bought one CD, how much would I have to pay? $15. If I bought 2, 30. What's happening? I'm multiplying the number of CDs by 15. So here I use the cost, okay? I'm going to use C for my cost. And because I was asked to write an equation, my cost is going to equal 15 times n. And again, I don't use that multiplication symbol because it's understood now to be there. Our last example in the quick check is you're going to write an equation for this table. Now, we're earning money and we're saving money. So what's happening? Let's look at this and see if you can notice something. Did you notice anything special? Maybe that the amount of money we earn and the amount of money we save is half. So define your variables. That's going to be the big one. So I'm going to use S for the money saved and E for the money earned. And I'm going to take the money saved is going to equal my money earned divided by 2. How'd you do? Please see me with questions as you go along. If you have a question, you can always email me as well. If you don't have any questions, you can start on your homework problems. Good luck.